Hello, we are so excited to welcome you to the inaugural episode of Repo by IHRM. This is a platform that will allow you an opportunity to learn, grow, and interact with your favorite leaders and HR professionals. We encourage you to look out for more episodes and to also follow us on our social media platforms at IHRM Kenya. We encourage you to also visit our website, www.ihrm.or.ke, to get to understand what it is that we do at IHRM. IHRM is a professional body of HR practitioners in this country. We regulate HR professionals, we build and develop their capacity through learning and development programs, and we also register members. So we encourage you to look us out and to follow us on our platforms. My name is Ihrm, and I will be your host. Coming up on the show,
experience is not about 10 years in one job.
Yeah.
I always say to people when you say I have 20 years experience, but it's 20 years doing the same thing, that will never grow you. It has to be years of experience in different experiences.
Yeah. But before we get there, here is a HR tip for today. Are you looking to catch the recruiter's eye? Here is a tip on how to tailor your resume. Take the time to carefully review the job posting and identify the key skills, experiences, and qualifications the employer is looking for. Then customize your resume to highlight those specific points. Use keywords from the job description throughout your resume to show that you're the perfect fit for the role. By aligning your resume with the job description, you demonstrate your attentiveness and increase your chances to catching the recruiter's eye. Hello there and welcome to Repo by IHRM. This is our inaugural show and we're excited to bring you on board to the conversation. This is going to be a platform where you will have an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow, and interact with your favorite business leaders and HR professionals. Today, we are joined by a lady who is a member of the Institute of Human Resource Professionals. She's also a fellow of IHRM. She is a HR professional by excellence, and she's also the current chairperson of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Welcome to the show, Madam Lynn Mengich.
Thank you, Ihrm.
We are delighted to have you, and thank you for honoring our invite for our inaugural show. So I have just highlighted a few things about yourself. You are a HR professional, global and local experience. You're also currently the chairperson of SRC. Tell us a little bit more about yourself so that our audience can get to appreciate who you are.
Right, thank you. My background in HR really spans both private sector and public sector. Mm-hmm. I started my career in Unilever. That is in the late 80s,
Wow.
A while back, actually 1986 to be more precise.
Wow.
So I was in HR in different roles,
Yeah.
and after a period of about 9 years, I moved to SmithKline as the HR director. So I was there for roughly about 3 years, then to Shell. Mm-hmm. In Shell, I held roles at the regional level and at Africa level. Wow. Then my next career move was to Kenya Commercial Bank as the HR director. Wow. And then to Barclays Bank as the HR director. Wow. Then I did my own consulting. I set up a business, Nuevo Consulting, for another period of years. Then to my current role. Wow. So that's really my span of HR. Mm-hmm. But in between, I've also held positions at board level. I've been a board member at Jamibora Bank. I've been a board member at Sovereign Group. Then, of course, my current role is also a board position. Wow. So that's my experience.
That is quite impressive. And this is a good point to start our conversation, because most HR professionals admire or aspire to have a career path like the one you've had, starting off with the very technical HR work, rising all the way to the board level. What are some of those pivotal moments for you as you made each transition into the different roles that you got into?
For me, because you see my career spans, let me call it 3 strands of HR.
Yeah.
One is obviously the technical side, which you have mentioned. So my initial career was mainly the technical side.
Yeah.
And as I changed my roles from one to the other, starting with when I moved to SmithKline, at that point was my first time when I then took up a role that sits at the board.
Yeah.
So at that point, then you move from technical, but you begin having a lot of the leadership now starting.
Yeah.
My next career move in Shell now really built my leadership side, continuing with the technical. And the leadership side, this was mainly managing other HR leaders because I was in charge of the region. So having HR managers reporting into me. So that's a leadership piece.
Yeah.
But in that, then there is also the other bit of then beginning to work with business leaders. So it is you're sitting at the board level, and you're then able to go beyond just HR to now begin to embrace the leadership side of HR.
Yeah.
So that's the second piece of it. It's the leadership side, but not just leading HR,
Yeah.
but also as a business leader. Then the third side of that, as I changed my roles, is the board leadership.
Yeah.
So I look at the three is what has really helped me to grow as I changed from one role to the other.
To another.
Yeah.
Before we get to the board leadership, which I am very keen to have that come up, you are a lady in a career for close to 20-something years. You said 1986. I'm sure most of us who are now practicing HR are probably not born yet.
Yes.
And what are some of the challenges you have faced as a lady? And what are some of the strategies you have employed to navigate the different roles, be it technical, be it a strategy and influencing business, and now leading business as a board
So
chairperson?
at that point, there were very few ladies in senior leadership positions.
Yeah.
In fact, when I first started, being a member of the executive committee or
Yeah.
at the board level, I was practically the only
only
woman
lady.
at the beginning, right from Smith Klein, even in Shell. It's only at Kenya Commercial Bank that after a while we were two women.
Yeah.
So yes, at that point, one of the challenges is there are very few women role models
Yeah.
that you can actually look up to and say this is what it looks like to be, in leadership as a woman.
Yeah.
But the other challenge just comes with how you then manage and juggle between managing your family and the career. So that becomes another challenge that is unique to women. But in all that, it's about deliberately going out of your way to say, I must strike a balance.
Yeah.
Some things must give in, and you decide what cannot give in. For me, I knew my career and my family. Other things, I put them aside.
Yeah.
If you ask me, did I even have a hobby at that point in time? Probably none, because there was just no time for it.
There's time for everything.
So you have to be deliberate
Yeah,
and choose what is important, what is priority. And being a woman, I must say, because I was in a global environment, the challenge wasn't that big in the sense that this is a time when diversity was a conversation in many organizations, and organizations were challenging themselves to have women in leadership. So in a sense, it also can play to your advantage.
Yeah.
Where
propels
organizations,
you.
because organizations accept now that we need to have more women in leadership. So as long as you're there and you're showing what it takes to be a leader, then it actually helps. It propels you to those leadership positions. Not because you're a woman, because you'll never be chosen because you're a woman. It is because you're demonstrating what it takes to be in those senior leadership positions.
So if I'm hearing what you're saying, you have to be clear on what your priorities are. That is your career and your family in this case for you. And secondly, you have to build your competency.
Yes.
Can you say something about that?
Absolutely. You cannot progress if you're not competent in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, the competencies are in different levels. First, you must be solid in your technical competence as a HR professional.
Yeah.
And at that point, you decide whether you want to be a HR generalist, you want to be a specialist in HR, or you want to be both, because you can do both. So for me, I've done both. I've been specialist, and I've also been a HR generalist. So that's your technical side. But you must build your leadership competencies. And as I mentioned earlier, leadership is not about just leading your team. It's also across board. Because then as you progress in leadership, it's not about your HR leadership, but it becomes a business leadership. So that must be the other competence that you must really develop.
All right, thank you. Let's get now to your current role. Most people know you as a chairperson of SRC. And the nature of your work, you receive quite the attention sometimes. What has that experience been like for you?
Wow, I must say it's a very fulfilling experience with a lot of challenges. but a lot of learning for me. This was a transition from private sector most of my life to my first public sector role. And the first thing for me was there's a lot of similarities. The competencies I had have been very useful. But in the public sector space, especially in remuneration, it has its own unique challenges because you're dealing with probably saying no to many people, right? I mean,
and on a very emotive issue,
limited resources.
Yes.
We've got a constitutional mandate to ensure fiscal sustainability of the wage bill. But on the other hand, that may not be necessarily what the public officers see. They also want to see their pay going up. So just trying that balance between what is our constitutional mandate vis-a-vis the expectations of the public officers can be challenging at times.
And you said something that your previous skills came in handy. Draw the parallel between your HR experience, both as a generalist, as a specialist, leading strategy, and how that has helped you or enabled you to lead the team at SRC. And especially because you're dealing with people. If you're having conversations, whether it's with the leadership of the country, these are human beings. So how has what your experience and your skills enabled you to excel at SRC?
There is a lot of experience you actually bring on board. And for me, as you mentioned, first of all, on my technical side, although this is not a technical role because I'm chairing a commission, but even at a board level, you must have some competencies that you're bringing in. So for me, I still brought in my HR experience because this is remuneration and benefit is still a HR space. So that played to my strength from that perspective. The other one that then was very instrumental for me is not just saying leadership generally, but in the public sector, it's about really managing stakeholders because you're dealing with a very wide range of stakeholders. Every stakeholder has their own interests. But here, then you must work with all these stakeholders. So for me, honing really the skills of stakeholder management, of collaboration, of bringing everyone on board is a skill that I had learned, but I must say I have had the opportunity to do it much, much more. So that has been useful. And of course, from my past experience in boards, it means in terms of governance, I had that experience of being in boards. So bringing in the governance side was also useful for me. So that's how I made the transition from public to private. But yes, there is a lot of things you must learn when you get to public sector. Yes.
You mentioned stakeholder management and engagement, and that's a skill that you learn. Do you think you can learn that in school or through reading, or you have to really be put in a position where you have to exercise it?
That one you must, it's not something you read through the books. Yes, you will go through your training, even in HR, we learn about this. But really you can only hone in that skill through practical experience and actually working with the stakeholders. And one of the reasons, Irene, is they're different. So even if I was practicing the same stakeholder management in a public sector or private sector, the actors are different. And because the actors are different, you cannot say it is the same. There's something that is slightly different. The basics may be the same, but the actual practicality is different. You're dealing with different human beings, different expectations. So yes, it has to be practical.
Okay. And for a HR professional who's looking at you and saying, I want to have a career journey like Lynn. I want to be able to move from a technical expert, lead a business, sit in a board. What do you advise them to do? Other than building the competencies, or how do you build these competencies? What do they need to do?
One of the important things is, you see, you can learn. You can go to school, you can read, but that will not be sufficient. It is actually identifying the opportunities that will allow you to demonstrate those skills. And you can see from my career journey, it meant changing to many different organizations. Not everybody can do that. You can still grow within your own space within the same organization. But what is important is you must change your roles. That is very critical. Experience is not about 10 years in one job.
Yeah.
I always say to people, when you say I have 20 years experience,
experience.
but it's 20 years doing the same thing, that will never grow you. It has to be years of experience in different experiences,
Yeah.
and it has to be growing at a higher level, not the same, not horizontal. So you must really think about, how do I grow? Sometimes you have to take horizontal moves in order to go up. And I've done that in some of my career moves. There are areas where I've actually gone across, because then I can see I can grow up from there. So just identifying those opportunities that will allow you to move within your organization or external, but you must keep moving to a higher role if you want to hone your competencies at the 3 levels.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have to get out of your comfort zone. Don't get too comfortable.
Yes, in fact, for me, and I'll talk about for me, once I reach my 4th year, I feel like I'm comfortable. And I know it is time to move.
Are you sure you're not a millennial?
No.
At heart.
That's the way it worked for me.
Yeah.
I mean, probably in many years, this is probably my longest job. It's my 6th year now.
Wow.
So for me, when you feel you're comfortable, it's time to sort of think through it. But again, let me also say a caveat. Don't move too quickly as well, because there are jobs you will not be able to really make an impact in 1 year or 2 years. There are jobs you need to be there for a period of time. Give yourself space and time to actually make an impact. So that's also important. If you're moving too quickly, you're not giving yourself enough space and time to actually make an impact before you make your next career move.
All right. I want to speak a little more about the decision to move horizontally, because most people want to move vertically, a higher job group, a better pay. At what point, when you feel the need to move, say 4 or 5 years, how would you arrive at that decision? Is it just the feeling, or would you, evaluate and build some skills or talk to somebody? What was that like? How would you navigate and say, this is now my move and this is a good move?
Okay, for me, and you've talked about horizontal.
Yeah.
For me, I must say, probably it is because at that time in HR, there were few HR professionals. So actually, almost all my jobs, let me say all of them, except my current one, I was headhunted. Okay, this one I applied. All right, the rest. But at that point, even if you're headhunted, you still have to make that decision.
Yeah.
Do I want to move, don't I? Right? And I gave an example that I actually made horizontal. I was a HR director in SmithKline Beecham, and there was an opportunity in Shell. But in that discussion was, you have to be willing to come in first as the HR manager for Kenya Shell. But within a year, there was someone retiring at the regional office. Then you would progress up.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm really lateral, right? But I was looking at the bigger picture that as long as I demonstrate that I can grow, there was that opportunity. So you're taking a risk, but at the same time, you can see what is in it for you.
Yeah.
So for me, it might be different for people, but it's a question of saying, if I'm the head of HR in an organization, and there is nothing else beyond that, unless, of course, you want to be the MD, which is possible. HR managers now, are becoming MDs. So if it reaches a point you're a head of HR and there is no other move, then your only other option might be go elsewhere in a bigger organization that could give you a bigger career growth.
All right.
Yeah.
Now let's come back to HR professionals, and the business landscape is now very dynamic, juggling very many changes. What trends are you seeing, and how can HR professionals better position themselves, not only to influence their organizations, but to influence business?
I think, let me put it this way, Irene, is when we talk about what is changing in the HR landscape, sometimes when I look back, And I say, is HR moving at the same pace in the entire ecosystem in Kenya?
Yeah.
And the truth is no.
Yeah.
Now that's what is, in me, I say it is a sad reality that today in our organizations in Kenya, we are still in a space where sometimes HR is still very operational. They're not even that strategic. So even as you ask that conversation, it may not speak to everyone because we still have HR operating at very different positions, right? In some organizations, HR is where you're speaking to. They are at a strategic level.
Yeah.
They are able to influence and make an impact. And therefore, the question you've asked becomes relevant for them. What is changing? What is happening? In this space where technology, for example, is here with us, and it has had a huge impact on HR, both in terms of the skills we require as HR, and also being able to help the business to drive through that change.
Yeah.
The disruptions that we see that is brought about by technology. We are seeing disruptions coming out of climate change. Are we ready for it? Are we preparing our organizations for this? But for me, as I said, that is a different group of HR people, and they've got to be ready to transition the organizations, prepare a future talent that speaks to that digital talent, green talent, which speaks to technology and climate change. But there are also others who are still very operational HR.
Yeah.
And therefore, in Kenya today, as I speak, I would really say, let's not assume all organizations are that part of the spectrum. There are some that are really still operational, and we need to work at it, even as IHRM, even as fellows. How do we ensure that HR who are still in this operational space are actually geared to become strategic partners?
What are some of the things we can do? What do you think where can we start so that we bring everybody on board to influence the way we would want it to be?
I think from what I see, I look at an organization. I've seen, for example, I think it's New Zealand. They have a very good competency framework for HR. We don't have one. If we can do that, we begin by saying, can we assess all our professionals? Where are we? And sometimes it's not the individual, it's the organization that has deliberately put HR at level 4 in an organization. You know, I speak at public sector because we do job evaluation, so we see the job descriptions.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say it becomes very sad for me when I see HR being reporting to finance managers, they're reporting to the very low level. What does that mean is that, and none of those organizations are successful, those who are putting HR where they are, from what I have seen, right?
Yeah.
So what can we do? We must intentionally, as a profession, begin to be clear what are the HR competencies. Let's make sure everybody is assessed. We know where HR is being placed, and we deliberately get organizations to appreciate why they will not succeed if HR is just an operational outfit rather than a strategic outfit. That, to me, is the role of the profession of HR, and we need to do that.
All right. What then, a professional listening to you and saying that is for my MD to do, that's for IHRM as a professional body to do, that's a policy issue. What can I do at a personal level so that in the organization I can start, you may be a leader without the title, but you're influencing.
In fact, the change starts with me. The change starts with that HR professional. Because you must ask yourself, why is the organization placing HR there? Is it because they don't see anything in me as the HR person? Right? So it is that HR person who must demonstrate the importance of HR so that the organization can be convinced that they need to be placed at a strategic level. So for me, policy level, not really. Yes, there is. But a lot of the change will begin with the HR professional themselves demonstrating that there is something they can offer beyond their operational role. can they demonstrate to the organization?
Yeah.
Because if they do, I believe the organization will allow them the space to operate. But until you show me you can do, why would I give you the space?
So it starts with me.
It starts with me.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
You just had a very successful wage bill conference, conversations around performance and productivity. And I have listened to conversations, and some people are not clear on what productivity is vis-a-vis performance. Could you speak to that and also encourage HR professionals to drive this in their organizations?
Yeah, thank you. Performance management is a bigger picture. It's a framework, the performance management. But now when we come to measuring performance, and the question then there is, what are we measuring? Are we just measuring activities? Are we measuring productivity? So the question lies in what the measurements and the outcomes that we expect. So the conversation we had in the wage bill conference is, for organizations to succeed, we must make sure that in our performance management, productivity is what we are measuring. Let us stop measuring activities. Let us measure outcomes. But to do that, it will take three main levers. One is you must embrace technology. Right. Number two, you must re-engineer your processes on a continuous basis. Number three, you must build the skills within your organization. So that is where we are today. And just as because it's important for all of us, is Kenya is not ranked very well. In Africa, we are at 26, 25 there.
Yeah.
In the world, we are ranking 155.
Wow.
What does it speak of us as a country, and even as HR professionals who are tasked with the responsibility of ensuring our labor is productive? So our labor productivity is very low. So when we speak about productivity, it's a concern for both public and private sector. And I see that HR has a key role to play to ensure that we begin speaking productivity. Let us challenge our organizations not to be okay with just delivering activities, but to challenge everybody to say, what is the impact you have made? What is the outcome? Yes.
So we are moving away from ticking a box, saying this was done, looking at how efficiently it was done, how effective it has been, how we have utilized resources, and the impact that has had.
Yes, we must move to what is the impact that you have made. Having done all these things, which are good to have, you've done all these things, but what is it? What have we achieved? What is the outcome? And until we make sure that our organizations are moving towards that measurement, we will continue doing a lot of activities, being very busy in the organizations and measuring our processes and being happy that we've done it. But the impact is not felt.
It's lacking.
Yeah.
All right, as we bring this to a close, are you feeling as though you're at a point where you're considering legacy? Having moved all the way from HR professional to board chairperson, what does legacy look like for you?
I think for me, legacy is something that all of us must think through. Not when you're about to retire, because you ask me, am I thinking of legacy?
Yeah.
No, legacy is what you think about in every career move that you make. Because legacy is about, what impact have I made? What am I leaving behind? So let's not leave legacy to when you are about to retire. Legacy you build from day one, from your first career. Ask yourself that question. When I'm done with this career in this space of 5 years maximum, now I think people move faster, what is the legacy I've left in that space? So for me, career is not an end game. It is what you do throughout your life, throughout your career, and you must build that legacy continuously. So that in the end, when you say what's my legacy, it is a sum of everything.
It's a sum total.
It's a
not
sum
parts.
total. No.
So what's that for Lynn? The sum total.
For me, if I look at what is my legacy, I look back and say, in every organization where I've been, is there something I can say is attributed to me? And I can say yes, confidently I can tell you, this organization, this is what happened. This one, this is what happened. and I'm looking forward to writing a book
wow.
and documenting those. Yeah.
That would be a good read, because like for me, stakeholder management would be something I see I would want to read how you navigated all those
If I
elements.
tell you generally, one is change management. There is an organization that we were part of the transition, and it's very successful right now in Kenya. But I was privileged to be part of the transition when KCB was moving from public to private. You can see where it is at the moment. A lot of impact from what we did on the change management and putting in place the HR processes that are there today, which I can actually name and say 1, 2, 3. I put them there, making sure that there is a leadership development program, ensuring the culture change program happened, putting in place performance management and performance incentives. So I can point back to that when I look at Shell, for example, Barclays. Some of the key ones I will always remember is the women in leadership programs that we put in place that really helped the growth of women leaders in the organization. But generally, a lot of innovative ways of doing talent management, which we introduced, of course, with my team, not on my own. So for me, I can pinpoint very specific things that I can say this has been core for me. I led a change management program in Shell to set up an organization in Africa. It was splitting from South America, and we were setting up Africa, an organization for Africa. So again, that was a change management piece for me, which involved a lot of organizational designs, talent management, and ensuring that there is a new organization set up to run Africa.
All right.
So yes, there's quite a bit.
All right. So a parting shot as you leave to HR professionals and to business leaders.
My parting shot is each one of us has the responsibility to make an impact for the time that you have the privilege to be where you are serving. And there's no one who will say, I'm too small, I'm too big. All of us, there's a reason why you're where you are. And in that space where you are, you can make an impact, but you must purpose to do so. It will not just happen. You must be purposeful, and you must therefore, define what is it that I can do in this space, in this time that I have the opportunity to serve.
All right. That's a perfect way to sum it up. Thank you so much, Madam Lynn Mengich, the Chairperson SRC, for joining us in our inaugural Repo by IHRM. Asante sana.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of our very first episode, and we're so excited to have this show on the road. That has been our guest for today, Madam Lynn Mengich, the Chairperson of SRC, and we are so grateful and honored to have her on the show. We encourage you to continue following us and to look out for more episodes. Follow us on our social media platforms at IHRM Kenya. I want to thank our partners, Sarova Panafric, where we did the recording, as well as Kara Production for putting this together. My name is Ihrm and I have been your host.